All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We are about to get started. We'll give it another minute as usual. And then we will get started. We got the top two things this morning I want to go through. Very important, I think. So get out your pens and pieces of paper, and then we will look at that. A little bit of a sneak peek at something here. We'll look at this. There's momentum coming into a bunch of new things, or a bunch of things. So stay tuned. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Yeah, one more minute. Just checking the timer here. Okay. All right. All right, let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Serge Berger here with our Set the Market morning show. If you've never been here before, thanks for being here. We sort of specialize here in quickly going 10-15 minutes, just looking at what are some of the most important things as far as we're concerned for the day and developments, and then we move on. So no wasting time. Let's get right to it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. It helps you because it allows you to get the alerts of our live updates and market analysis and everything in real time. And also, please give us a thumbs up like. And lastly, it actually helps us as well because it allows us to continue to do the show, as I like to say. So let's get started. Equity futures this morning, not a whole lot going on. More or less a continuation of what happened yesterday. So we're kind of just flatlining. We got a lot of tech earnings this week, of course, jobs report, and then next week's election. What's going on, though, is really interesting. And so the top, I guess, two things that I want to talk about here. Number one is what's going on in bond yields, why that matters to stocks. But we're going to start first with actually number two, which is what's going on in Bitcoin, IBIT, the ETF, and so on and so forth. Let me just quickly preface this by saying the following. I realize some people do not like Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin enthusiast, right? I own some for diversification, and I think there's trading opportunities. What we're all about is making money. And so particularly with the advent of the ETFs that basically trade like Bitcoin, like the IBIT ETF, for example, that sort of hurdle of having to create a Coinbase account, is kind of gone, right? So IBIT can be bought in your Fidelity or Schwab account and whatever. So I think if we look at the lens of listen, let's just try to make money, then we have a pretty good chance of this being more interesting for a lot more people. What am I showing you here? I'm showing you two lines. We have Ether or Ethereum, which is the candlestick line, and then we have Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, of course, is the red line. You could also just say this is the IBIT ETF, and I'll show you the recent momentum signals we got and why we think it could continue. If you look at this historically speaking, there's pretty darn good correlation between Bitcoin and Ether. Okay, what's going on here though is right now that Ethereum or Ether is actually lagging quite badly behind Bitcoin. So we could see a situation where Ether starts to catch up, and there's ETFs on Ether as well that can be looked at. And so you can see Ether down here notably diverging from Bitcoin. Let's quickly fast forward and go right to Bitcoin itself. So I'm going to get rid of the Ether stuff, but I think that's interesting, so hopefully that's helpful for some of you guys. But look at Bitcoin, and we're going to look at the BTC USD first, and then we're going to go right and look at the ETF because I know more people are interested in trading it that way than just looking at Bitcoin, which I can understand, of course, it's less hassle to just buy an ETF. So here's Bitcoin. The long-term chart, again, just to quickly remind people, it looks like this. To me, this is the bull case. And again, not a Bitcoin enthusiast. I just happen to think it makes sense from a diversification perspective and ultimately from an investment perspective if we look at this through the lens of diversification. Now, Bitcoin continues to move in these waves that are essentially, oh, now I gotta make This is such a pain in the ass. Sorry about that. And I have to make this. Oh, because it's a weekly chart. That's why. Here we go. All right. I have to make this a monthly chart. So this here is what Bitcoin would look like if I could show this to you properly. Ah, boy, I think TradingView is having some issues here this morning because it's supposed to look a heck of a lot easier than this. Anyway, long story short, Bitcoin moves in these waves that basically lead to consolidation phases, and then it kind of breaks out. So that's essentially what we've seen, the way Bitcoin works, and it's once again now basically attempting to break out of a longer-term consolidation phase. If you zoom in closer, and this is what's now happening, and I'm going to go back into a weekly chart first, you can see that we are starting to, on a weekly closing basis, or on a weekly basis so far, the week of course has just started, we're now starting to break out. Now if you look at this on the daily chart, and this is where momentum comes in as well, this morning so far today is up, Bitcoin's up 1.7%. And so if you look at the IBIT ETF, which is going to open up higher as well this morning, and again, this is what a lot of people like to use as, or one of these ETFs. There's obviously more than just this one here. This just happens to be one of the bigger ones. You can see that we're also breaking out. So this is kind of interesting. The question, of course, is how long and how far can this go? So we like to use momentum for that. And so what I like to do is I like to look at our momentum indicators. So you can see, for example, Bitcoin, we got a new buy signal after a failed sell signal, and Bitcoin is now moving up like 13%. On the IBIT ETF, we actually had a buy signal a while ago that remains intact. So it's clearly bullish momentum. If you guys want to learn more about momentum, make sure you join us this week in our three-part series. We're going to go do today, tomorrow, and Thursday and talk about momentum and how we can use the TST trender for momentum. So that's number one. How high can this go? IBIT at this point, I mean, you know, if Bitcoin continues to push higher from here, I don't see any reason why IBIT can't go another, 5+% higher in the near term, and then we'll have to see. Remember, there's going to be probably volatility around the election, so to me, this is much more of an investment and a momentum trade. So I have some diversification from an investment perspective that I've held it for years, but then I'm looking to trade momentum because if there's one thing that can gain momentum really strongly, it's Bitcoin or the IBIT ETF or Bitcoin futures, whatever kind of you may or may not be interested in using as the vehicle of choice for yourself. So that is number one. The second thing we really have to talk about is yields. This morning, we have 10-year bond yields up once again by 1% in terms of price movement, in terms of the actual price, but yields themselves are up about 4 basis points. So why does this matter? It matters because, first of all, we got a strong momentum buy signal. So momentum remains very strong, and this is happening right into the teeth of an election. So the Fed cut interest rates on the 18th of October, and the bond market is basically, giving the double stink finger to the Fed by just ramping higher in yields. I really don't know what to make of this at this point. Some people are saying this is because U.S. growth was so great. I disagree with that one. I think that may be a quarter of the story. I think much more someone's front running something here. And the long and short of it is the bond market saying, listen, you guys don't have your act together in terms of the fiscal, which of course is true, sadly. And so that's what's happening. But the question, what I don't know, and I guess this is my point, I don't know if this affects the equity market anytime soon. Because at the end of the day, we have a situation where the equity market is essentially not really caring about anything, where the bond market, whether the bond market trades at 3.6% on a 10-year or 4.5, 4.6. So you'd have to see probably a break out of that range. However, this to me is probably the most concerning thing heading into the election, and I do think ultimately this can lead to equity market volatility. But again, that's silly to make that statement right now until it actually takes place. So, but I would watch this very, very closely because it does tell us something. The second thing is the inverse of this, of course, is TLT. So we received a sell signal, a momentum sell signal with the TST trender on the 26th of September. And of course, TLT since then is straight down. Again, that's basically the inverse because TLT is price. The bond yield chart I showed you just before is bond yield, and they move in the inverse, right? As bond yields go up, bond prices go down, and vice versa. So bonds right now are an absolute momentum trade. And I'm very open to this continuing to the downside, meaning bond yields going higher after the election, but I'm also open to momentum changing for a while and the bond market actually rallying, yields going down because of whatever reason. We have a real toggle point here heading into the election, and I think that's really, really critical. So we want to be aware of that. Gold and silver, I see some people asking, unchanged, both bullish from a trend perspective and from a momentum perspective. But I would watch Bitcoin very closely here today. IBIT, the ETF, again, we have momentum buy signals there from the TSD trender, and we have continued buy signals in yields, meaning short signals in bonds, which I do not want to hold through the election because, again, I just don't know how the markets are going to react. But the fact that bond yields continue to go higher in a straight line, unabatedly, is very, very concerning. And I would be very, very much watching this very closely. It may not be anything at the end of the day, but it could be something. And if it is something, then we could have a much bigger problems on our hands than I think a lot of people think. So everyone is maximum bullish, maximum allocated right now for the most part, and it takes little to kind of put things off track. It's not my forecast. I think until something happens, this is going to be, machines are going to buy things, stocks basically. But this move in bond yields is very, very unusual, particularly heading right into an election. So anyway, that's where we're at. If you're an Inner Circle member, we are going to do a live gap trade here this morning. We are going to be going through some positions this morning as well and give you some price targets on Bitcoin as well and some other things here. We're going to get started there in about 5 minutes. And please make sure you join us this week starting at 11 o'clock today, 11 o'clock tomorrow, New York time, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and actually even Friday. And we're going to go and show you how to use momentum. We're going to talk about stocks and ETFs and options and futures on that as well. Thanks for joining here. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at same time, right? So 9 o'clock New York time, 6 o'clock Pacific. As always, thanks so much for being here, and please give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe to the channel, let everyone know. It helps you get updated in real time when we do new sessions and new live analysis, new podcasts, and it certainly helps us to be able to continue to do this here in the morning. Hope it helps. Any feedback, please let us know, and have a great day.